Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Right now, I'm playing host this week. I'm Dan Sisick. I'm here in Las Vegas, and I'll let the others jump out and introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with in the book, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Sorry, I don't have the actual physical book, but so I'm not sure what physical page we're on, and I think we're on. Are we on the perfect life or the one after that?
A spiritual quest for a deeper connection with the universe.
Okay. And with that, I'll let everybody else jump out and introduce themselves, and then we'll get started.
I'm Lori Emmons in Denver.
Hey, Jason Roberts here in Tampa Bay, Florida.
Good morning. This is Catherine Clement, and we'll be starting at Spiritual Quest for a Deeper Connection with the Universe. She found the medicine drawer in the kitchen and rummaged through the plasters and ibuprofen and Calpol and multivitamins and runner's knee bandages, but couldn't find any sign of any antidepressants. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was finally the life she was going to stay put in, the life she would choose, the one she would not return to the shelves. I could be happy here. A little later, in the shower, she scanned her body for new marks. There were no tattoos, but there was a scar. Not a self-inflicted scar, but a surgical-looking one. A long, delicate horizontal line below her navel. She had seen a cesarean scar before, and now she stroked her thumb along it, thinking that even if she stayed in this life, she would have always turned up late for it. Ash came back home from dropping Molly off. She hastily dressed so he wouldn't see her naked. They had breakfast together. They sat at their kitchen table and scrolled the day's news and ate sourdough toast and were very much like a living endorsement for marriage. And then Ash went to the hospital and she stayed home to research Thoreau all day. She read her work in progress, which already had an impressive word count of 42,729, and sat eating toast before picking Molly up from school. Molly wanted to go to the park, like normal, to feed the ducks, and so Nora took her, disguising the fact that she was using Google Maps to navigate her way there. Nora pushed her on a swing till her arms ached, slid down slides with her, and crawled behind her through large metallic tunnels. They then threw dry oats into the pond for the ducks, scooped from a box of porridge. Then she sat down with Molly in front of the telly, and then she fed her dinner and read a bedtime story, all before Ash returned home. After Ash came home, a man came to the door and tried to get in, and Nora shut the door in his face. Nora? Yes? Why were you so weird to Adam? What? I think he was a little put out. What do you mean? You acted like he was a stranger. Oh, Nora smiled. Sorry. He's been our neighbor for 3 years. We went camping with him and Hannah in the Lake District. Yes, I know, of course. You looked like you weren't letting him in, like he was an intruder or something. Did I? You shut the door in his face. I shut the door. It wasn't in his face. I mean, yes, his face was there, technically, but I just didn't want him to think he could barge in. He was bringing the hose back. Oh, right. Well, we don't need the hose. Hoses are bad for the planet. Are you okay? Why wouldn't I be? I just worry about you. Generally, though, things turned out pretty good, and every time she wondered if she would wake up back in the library, she didn't. One day, after her yoga class, Nora sat on a bench by the river cam and reread some Thoreau. The day after, she watched Ryan Bailey on daytime TV being interviewed on the set of Last Chance Saloon 2, in which he said he was on a spiritual quest for a deeper connection with the universe, rather than worrying about settling down in a romantic context. She received whale photos from Izzy and WhatsApped her to say that she had heard about a horrid car crash in Australia recently and made Izzy promise she would always drive safely. Nora was comforted to know she had no inclination whatsoever to see what Dan was doing with his life. Instead, she felt very grateful to be with Ash. Or, rather, and more precisely, she imagined she was grateful because he was lovely, and there were so many moments of joy and laughter and love. Ash did long shifts, but was easy to be around when he was in, even after days of blood and stress and gallbladders. He was also a bit of a nerd. He always said, "Good morning" to elderly people in the street when walking the dog, and sometimes they ignored him. He sang along to the car radio. He generally didn't seem to need sleep and was always fine doing the Molly night shift even when he was in surgery the next day. He loved to gross Molly out with facts. A stomach gets a new lining every 4 days. Earwax is a type of sweat. You have creatures called mites living in your eyelashes and love to be inappropriate. He, at the duck pond, the first Saturday within Molly's earshot, enthusiastically told a random stranger that male ducks have penises shaped like corkscrews. On nights when he was home early enough to cook, he made a great lentil dal and a pretty good penne arrabbiata, intended to put a whole bulb of garlic in every meal he created. Molly had been absolutely right. His artistic talents didn't extend to musical ability. In fact, when he sang The Sound of Silence, accompanied by his guitar, she found herself guiltily wishing he would take the title literally. He was, in other words, a bit of a dork who saved lives on a daily basis, but still a dork, which was good. Nora liked dorks, and she felt one herself. It helped make her get over the fundamental peculiarity of being with a husband you were only just getting to know. This is a good life, Nora would think to herself over and over again. Yes, being a parent was exhausting, but Molly was easy to love, at least in daylight hours. In fact, Nora often preferred it when Molly was home from school because it added a bit of challenge to what was otherwise a rather frictionless existence. No relationship stress, no work stress, no money stress. It was a lot to be grateful for. There were inevitably shaky moments. She felt the familiar feeling of being in a play for which she didn't know the lines. "Is anything wrong?" she asked Ash one night. "It's just—" He looked at her with his kind smile and intense scrutinizing eyes. "I don't know. You forgot our anniversary was coming up. You think you haven't seen films you've seen, and vice versa. You forgot you had a bike. You forget where the plates are. You've been wearing my slippers, and you get into my side of the bed." "Geez, Ash," she said, a little bit too tense. "It's like being interrogated by the three bears." "I just worry." "I'm fine. Just, lost in research world, lost in the woods, the rose woods." And she felt in those moments that maybe she'd return to the Midnight Library. Sometimes she remembered the words of Mrs. Elm on her first visit there. If you really want to live a life hard enough, you don't have to worry. The moment you decide you want that life, really want it, then everything that exists in your head now, including this Midnight Library, will eventually be a dream. A memory so vague and intangible it will hardly be there at all. Which begged the question, if this was the perfect life, why hadn't she forgotten the library? How long did it take to forget? Occasionally, she felt wisps of gentle depression float around her for no real reason, but it wasn't comparable to how terrible she had felt in her root life, or indeed many of her other lives. It was like comparing a bit of a sniffle to pneumonia. When she thought about how bad she had felt the day she lost her job at string theory, of the despair, of the lonely and desperate yearning to not exist, then this was nowhere near. Every day she went to bed thinking she was going to wake up in this life again because it was on balance and all things considered the best she had known. Indeed, she progressed from going to bed casually assuming she'd stay in this life to being scared to fall asleep in case she wouldn't. And yet, night after night, she would fall asleep, and day after day, she would wake up in the same bed, or occasionally on the carpet, but she shared that pain with Ash, and more often than not, it was a bed, as Molly was getting better and better at sleeping through. There were awkward moments, of course. Nora never knew the way to anything or where things were in the house, and Ash sometimes wondered out loud if she should see a doctor. And at first she had avoided sex with him. One night it happened, and afterwards Nora felt guilty about the lie she was living. They lay in the dark for a while, in post-coital silence, but she knew she had to broach the subject, test the water. Ash, she said, what? Do you believe in the theory of parallel universes? She could see his face stretch into a smile. This was the kind of conversation on his wavelength. Yes, I think so. Me too. I mean, it's science, isn't it? It's not like some geeky physicist just thought, hey, parallel universes are cool. Let's make a theory about them. Yeah, he agreed. Science distrusts anything that sounds too cool, too sci-fi. Scientists are skeptics, as a rule. Exactly. Yet physicists believe in parallel universes. It's just where the science leads, isn't it? Everything in quantum mechanics and string theory all points to there being multiple universes, many, many universes. Well, what would you say if I said that I have visited my other lives, and I think I have chosen this one? I would think you are insane, but I'd still like you. Well, I have. I have had many lives. He smiled. Great. Is there one where you kiss me again? There is one where you buried my dead cat. He laughed. That's so cool, Nora. The thing I like about you is that you always make me feel normal. And that was it. She realized that you could be as honest as possible in life, but people only see the truth if it is close enough to their reality. And Thoreau wrote, it's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. And Ash only saw the Nora he had fallen in love with and married, and so in a way, that was the Nora she was becoming. You want me to stop or continue?
I think we can go with the next one. Because I think it carries on some more with the life that she's in right now. So why not?
Okay. Hammersmith. During half term, while Molly was off school and on a Tuesday when Ash wasn't in the hospital, they popped on the train to London to see Nora's brother and Ewan in the flat in Hammersmith. Joe looked well, and his husband looked the same as he had when Nora had seen him on her brother's phone in her Olympic life. Joe, I need to figure out how to say this name where it comes out of my mouth right. I'm going to say Ewan because
That sounds
Ewan
right.
just
Yeah.
Ewan doesn't. Joe and Ewan met at a cross training class at their local gym. Joe was, in this life, working as a sound engineer, while Ewan, Dr. Ewan Langford to be precise, was a consultant radiologist for the Royal Marsden Hospital. So he and Ash had a lot of hospital related stuff to moan about together. Joe and Ewan were lovely with Molly, asking her detailed questions about what Panda was up to. And Joe cooked them all a great garlicky pasta and broccoli meal. It's Puglian, apparently, he told Nora, getting a bit of our heritage in there. Nora thought of her Italian grandfather and wondered what he had felt like when he realized the London Brick Company was actually based in Bedford. Had he been truly disappointed? Or had he actually just decided to make the most of it? There was probably a version of their grandfather who went to London and on his first day got run over by a double-decker bus at Piccadilly Circus. Joe and Ewan had a full wine rack in the kitchen, and Nora noticed that one of the bottles was a Californian Syrah from the Buena Vista vineyard. Nora felt her skin prickle as she saw the two printed signatures at the bottom. Alicia and Eduardo Martinez. She smiled, sensing Eduardo was just as happy in this life. She wondered momentarily who Alicia was and what she was like. At least there were good sunsets there. You okay? Asked Ash as Nora gazed absent-mindedly at the label. Yeah, sure. It's just this looks like a good one. That's my absolute fave, said Ewan. Such a bloody good wine. Shall we get it open? Well, said Nora, only if you were going to have a drink anyway. Well, I'm not, said Joe. I've been overdoing it a bit recently. I'm in a little teetotal patch. You know what your bro is like, added Ewan, planting a kiss on Joe's cheek. All or nothing. Oh, yeah, I do. Ewan already had the corkscrew in his hands. Had one hell of a day at work, so I'm happy to guzzle the whole lot straight from the bottle if no one will join me. I'm in, said Ash. I'm okay, said Nora, remembering that the last time she had seen him, in the business lounge of a hotel, her brother had confessed to being an alcoholic. They gave Molly a picture book, and Nora read it with her on the sofa. The evening progressed. They talked news and music and movies. Joe and Ewan had quite enjoyed the Last Chance Saloon. A little while later, and to everyone's surprise, Nora took a left turn out of the safe environs of pop culture and cut to the chase with her brother. Did you ever get pissed off with me? You know, for backing out of the band? That was years ago, sis. A lot of water under the bridge since then. You wanted to be a rock star, though. He still is a rock star, said Ewan, laughing, but he's all mine. I always feel like I let you down, Joe. Well, don't. But I feel like I let you down too, because I was such an idiot. I was horrid to you for a little while. These words felt like a tonic she had been waiting years to hear. Don't worry about it, she managed. Before I was with Ewan, I was so dumb about mental health. I thought panic attacks were a big nothing. You know, mind over matter. Man up, sis. But then, when Ewan started having them, I understood how real they are. It wasn't just the panic attacks. It just felt wrong. I don't know. For what it's worth, I think you're happier in this life than the one where you're, she nearly said, dead, in the band. Her brother smiled and looked at Ewan. She doubted he believed it, but Nora had to accept that, as she now knew only too well, some truths were just impossible to see.
I don't know about you, but I think we have some stuff there to talk about. If I'm not sure what Jason's doing, if he's got called away or something, but
Sounds good.
oh, okay. Uh, I think for Nora, the fact that she's still in this life, and it seems like it's been a little while now, and I think she's accepting it more and more due to the fact that I think that it kind of falls into what she has always thought she wanted her life to be. But she's also finding out there are some things that, because she knows about him from the other lives, it still reminds her of where she was, and she has the memories of some of those things, and that keeps coming up to play. And I wonder how that will play out as if she continues to progress on in this life.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It probably is going to be. I mean, we won't know till we read the rest of the book. But it's. I think one thing I've kind of noticed that it's a little bit different about this life is that she's learning about something that she is finding out that she wanted, but that she pushed away. And so perhaps it wasn't even kind of on her radar as to being something that I wonder how that would have turned out. She sort of was. It doesn't seem like she's really picking the life path. It's sort of like just she's sort of falling into it for some. I don't remember how she ended up in this life path exactly. It was, do you?
Yeah, she was talking to Mrs. Elm in the library, and they were looking at Mrs. Elm was telling her about all the different possibilities, I think, and then she said that maybe what would have happened if she would have stayed with Ash, or gone on the coffee date with Ash or something. Didn't he invite her on a coffee date or
Mm.
something? And something like that, if I remember. Maybe I'm just imagining it. I don't know.
It was something like that he had asked her out after purchasing something in the store in the music store, and she turned him down for some reason.
But it's
Yeah.
interesting in this life too, though, how even though she seems happy and comfortable, but when it comes to being intimate with Ash, she's still very awkward about that. And I think that's because deep down, I think she still has feelings for Dan. And I think she still, even though she hasn't come across the life that she feels that would have been what she wanted with Dan, I think this closest resembles it, but it's not with Dan. And so I think she's kind of like settling in some aspects for second best because it makes her feel comfortable and not because it's what she really wants. And that's the thing. Maybe this is also more to help her realize what she really wants, or is she really willing to accept what's comfortable and makes her what placates her feelings of, I think, the inadequacy of maybe her root life. And so therefore, oh, this is comfortable, this is feeling good, nothing really, my brother's here, this is here, that's there, and the other aspects she can probably deal with, but is it really truly deep down what she really wants in her heart? And I think it's more a life similar to this, but with Dan.
Mm.
I don't know about that, but I know that she seems this life seems a bit too normal for her somehow. Like, I don't think this is going to wind up being the the one either, because it's too calm. Like, there's not enough stimulation for her or something. But I'm not sure exactly why, because I don't think she's figured out what she wants yet.
Mm. Yeah, it could be. I find it interesting that, to me, it's highlighting two sort of different ways that a relationship can develop, and that sometimes you meet someone and it just feels right and you click and things are, you just end up going out and having a great time. And then other times you meet someone, um, it sort of takes a little bit of effort, and there's a little bit of, like, things throw you off a little bit, but there's some kind of force that's still magnetic force that keeps you together. And it seems like she's um, experiencing a lot of that in having to get to know, this guy so quickly. um, she's having to adjust to things that she would have normally have had plenty of time to get to know him and build in this relationship, whereas a lot of things are kind of catching her off guard, and it's not necessarily in her natural way of doing things. So it means, to me, in this relationship, she would have had to have made some adjustments or um, uh, you know just to sort of to make the relationship work. And so there must have been something there that she made felt that it was worth um, making those compromises, something along the way that her previous self, because she's hopping into her life that has already kind of been lived, but at this point she's kind of hopping in. I also wonder what happened to the other person, or did they hop out, or or what happened to her other self. Uh, but but just I was just making that kind of uh, just uh, that point about the relationships, and there being, like with Dan, it seemed that there was something there from the beginning with them. Could be wrong, but it seemed like when she was describing him, and it was more like a very comfortable relationship, almost too comfortable. And then with this guy, it was kind of a just a little bit more of a work, had to work at it a little bit more. And so I'll leave it there.
I don't know. Maybe it's me. Does it seem like she's been in this life a little bit longer than most of the others? And so therefore, and maybe because of having jumped in and out of the others so much or so quickly here, maybe she's subconsciously finally allowing herself to react a little bit more rather than just make assumptions or get so blindsided by what happens because of maybe what she's learned from the other ones that, oh, in those others I got, maybe subconsciously she's realizing, oh, I got to that point and all of a sudden it just like was so too much maybe at that point. Now maybe she's more willing to go through a little bit more because nothing really has really jumped out at her to make her question, so to speak, or that it's so stark or so in contrast to, you know, some of the other things she's done. Maybe that might be another part of what she's gone through too, is growing in the process of, because like in that one life, that one guy said I can't remember who it was, but he had said he had been in this life for a while, but he knew what she was going through. So I'm wondering if this is maybe the start of that for her, where, you know, she's becoming a little more receptive to going through a little bit more before she decides whether or not it's not the right one.
Well, it brings up the thought that that other guy that was she's in that life, he had been there for a little while, and then she popped in, and then she popped back out. And so now he's apparently, I could see him still being there, or a version of him still being there with another version of Nora. So are we you ever see your partner, or someone, your significant other, is suddenly acting completely different? you might you might um you might understand it a little bit better, I guess. So um but Nora has, with this one, she's it does strike me that she is needing to sort of change. She's changed to be compatible in this. Now it's noticeable because she's new to it and she's doing things completely different. But then that's what's striking me, is that she must have had along the way decided that it was worth making these, compromises or learning to be slightly different. Um, and and so maybe that's an indication that it is a good fit for her. That she's found a way to make it a good fit. That it wasn't all about the world fitting to her, but her changing slightly in order, kind of having some micro compromises along the way, and um, being open to the change a little bit more and less focused on um, holding on to who you are at the moment, but allowing change to develop a life that, hey, possibly you might just absolutely love, and you have to kind of be open to it.
It's interesting hearing you talk about that, but then going back to some of the little things that Ash pointed out to her. Oh, well, like you're sleeping on my side of the bed. You're wearing, I think he said, his slippers instead of hers. Some of the other things. So it's funny how some of the more subconscious and normal things, like me, I sleep on a certain side on my bed, and usually when I go somewhere else and I'm like house sitting, I tend to sleep most of the time on that side of the bed, and I don't have my slippers, but when I'm at home, I'm usually wearing my worn out slippers until I get some new ones. Um, Things like that. So our little things that we do, so it's just part of our everyday thing. But when you, like in this case, when she came into this life, she was still the Nora that she was, I'm going to say basically from her root life, with the little micro changes that she's taken from each of the lives she's lived in, but it still has not changed the root part of her that does, like when she goes to bed, when she does this, how she, those things. But yet in each life, people pick up on those things as you're not Nora, you're not, and I'm wondering if that's something else that in the back of her mind might be saying, oh, I need to be try to be more aware of some of those things. But even then, still, she's not fully, because like I said, she's still doing the little things that make the people in that life that she comes into realize that it's not the Nora that was there before she came in. So interesting.
Ash has to think that she's got Alzheimer's or something. I mean, as a doctor, with those showing those symptoms, he would have to be thinking in the back of his mind that she's got early Alzheimer's or something. So, how would you fit into something that you don't know how to fit into? So, I mean, how do you choose the right side of the bed if you don't know which one it is? I mean, her root life, are they still resuscitating her? I guess this is a long resuscitation for her to go through all these lives. But, this is all happening in an instant. So I think, she'll figure it out, but I think she's going to pop out of this one too. But she has definitely been in this one longer than any of the others. She's realized that, she's seen enough other things to realize that this is a really good life. Whether she'll stick with it or not, I don't know, but this is a really good life compared to like being chased by a bear or some of the other things that she's had to deal with. And like you said, she's got her brother here. So she's really happy about that. And Izzy is still alive in this one. So that's pretty cool. I can see her hanging out at least long enough to go see Izzy.
It's funny when you were just saying that. I had a thought come through my head, and now it kind of jumped out. But I hope I get it because it was such a good thought. Because you know, I totally lost it. I'm gonna have to try and think a bit again. Sorry.
Well, it's definitely better than being chased by a bear, and she does seem like she's happier, quite a bit happier, and and she's still, she still asked, what was it? It was her brother, I think. She asked about the band, and she still has those concerns, um, but that does seem like she fits in a little bit better, I think. So,
She got some closure with him on that though. And that's a new thing. I don't think she has gotten closure with somebody around some of these issues or regrets or whatever. So that is a positive step forward.
mhm.
But it's interesting because had she not gone through this and gotten to this life, see, that's the thing. Going back to even to our own lives, because there are lots of things, you know, that I think we've all gone through, dealt with, and sometimes we want closure, but sometimes we never get closure. And who's to say that if she doesn't stay in this life, will that closure be able to be stay there, or if she goes into another life and finds out that her brother's dead again, how's that going to play out, and what's that going to do? And it just makes me wonder because going through all this, she's seen all these different aspects of what her life could be, and I think we all do that in our own lives, in our own heads. We see all the aspects of, and especially when we do hindsight, we look back and said, "Oh well, if I did this, it could have possibly," and I've said that before. But how? I know I understand the needing closure, but in order to keep that closure, wouldn't she have to stay in this life? And but if she doesn't, she risks going to another life and finding out that he's dead again. Yeah, sometimes is it worth it to continually question and keep looking? And I hate to say this, you know, instead of, and I'm using the term settling, but it's not the right term, but maybe accepting. And sometimes I think we have to accept what is and what isn't. And sometimes we have to just go, okay, I'm never going to get an answer for that part that I want an answer for. And maybe we never ever get rid of it, but we can move forward. And I think maybe that's part of what some of the issues that keeps driving her to look for that life that she thinks is the perfect life.
She gets to the benefit of having the understanding that he was okay with it. But isn't it in the book? Isn't it that if she hops out of this life path, she can't go back into it, right? I think that
Correct.
the librarian was saying that once you hop out, you can't go back into the life. So you have to, with that knowledge, and then with the knowledge that your person who you were had some regrets about in this life is, that was a big, it seemed to be like the one of the major issues with her. So maybe that solves that for her, but she would need to decide, knowing that she wouldn't be able to come back into the life, she would have to decide. stay. I thought it was also interesting that what they talked about, that when she were to choose the life path, and I was looking at that, it would, that then the past experiences would be like a dream, and she would, so it, kind of in this, for us, and practicality, how much of that is a truth for us when we really choose our future life path, and we commit to that, months, years down the road, we look back, isn't it sort of as if the previous way we were headed, or the previous life we were living, is kind of like a dream? I mean, when you're really committed to your future and you sort of let go, it just struck me as there was a similarity there.
And it's something that just came up in my head based off a little bit of what both of you said. Um, in looking back at, like, in my own life, and I'm trying to go back and I'm trying to remember a lot of things from, like, my childhood, and because as I'm getting older, some of those aren't so easily recollected, and some of them, I'm even wondering, did I, some of that, you know, when I was younger was so fresh and so right there and so vivid. Now it's not so, but yet I'm trying to go back and remember a lot of the things from when I was younger, because one, I want to appreciate it and have it help me understand why I'm here and where I'm at today because of things that happened and, choices and things. And for me to, I think, help honor it too and give it, its due, because it's what helped shape my life, even though there are, some points where I know where I think if I took a different turn, my life would be different. But in looking at that and kind of going through this book and looking at Nora and being able to go through the different lives that are on the shelf in the Midnight Library, um, I'm wondering if how I might react if I was in that situation. Would I be willing to want to, or, you know, in some ways, I think she's kind of brave because she's willing and she's hanging on and trying to find. Well, I guess they're still resuscitating her, but you know, for me, if I was in that position, would I really want to, or that's another question that I think it poses even to me for me to look at. It's like, and it's made me, and part of this book is the reason why I'm trying to go back and look back at some of my, you know, past experiences, and some good and some bad. I'm trying to. It's hard to go to the bad ones, but because they're so prevalent still, but I'm still, and because I think we all are trying to, when we get to, especially me now, at my age, I'm trying to make sure that there was some meaning or something there in my life that makes my life worth it, which I believe it was. But at the same point, I look at other people and other things, and it's like, oh, well, why can't my life be more like that? And I think we tend to do that a lot too. And I think Nora's done that a little bit too here. She's seen or what she projects is what other people. So, I think that's also way back in the back cobwebs of her mind that might also play into a little bit of what she's going through here too.
I'm wondering that if they resuscitate her, if that's in fact what's going on, and does she need is she going to have to pass on in order to get in, stay in this life path? Or if they resuscitate her, will she then be back in that life path and then need to then pursue this life path? Because in this life path, it's not, I don't know that it's for sure that they did go on that coffee date, you know, but he definitely didn't bury her dead cat. So it seems like it would be a somewhat different situation. Yet I don't know how that would work out. Whether this is the life path she stays on or not. It'll be interesting to find out.
It seems like people try to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think I'm hooked now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think she'll remember. Well, who knows? Is she going to remember all of this if they resuscitated her, or is she just going to wake up in her old life, her core life, root life, I guess they've been calling it, and won't have any memory of any of these? Or like you said, I mean, I hadn't really thought that through. Is she going to have to physically die so that she can continue on in one of these lives that she's exploring? It seems like she was always looking for the easy life and hadn't really found it, but now she's kind of found it. But whether she'll want it or not, who knows? Because I can, we all go through periods of our life where we're more ambitious than others. Yeah, I'll put it that way. Like, not others as in other people, but we're more ambitious at certain times of our lives than in other times of our lives. And when we're young and full of vigor, we may want to be the president or something, but then we may not even want to do our own laundry by the time we get to a certain age. Like, I don't know, like it just it changes. And there are certainly times where I thought I wanted to follow a certain path, to go a certain way, and then other times when I thought that would have been ridiculous, and I don't know why I ever even had that thought, and choose a completely different path, kind of like she's doing in this long series of lives that she's exploring. Um, what kind of life do you want? Do you want one that is stimulating? Do you want one that just flows? Do you want one that, you can solve? Do you like to, are you kind of a detective? Do you like to solve problems? If you are, maybe you're kind of create problems in your life so that you can solve them. I mean, when you think these things through a little bit, you can see where we co-create um, in our lives, and how certain things may have come up just by considering what kind of life do you want. But I don't think most people consider that very much. Like, they just sort of are born into a family, especially some, like, I would say Eastern Indian culture. I'm not sure exactly what the PC name for that is, but like they have families where you are the only thing that the children are doctors. Like, their choice would be what kind of doctor would they be. But it's already set in stone that any child born into that family is going to be a doctor, or they're going to be a um, like a construction worker or, whatever it is, but they have these different sects or something. And the marriages are arranged to make sure that you're marrying somebody from the same thing so that when you start having children, you know that there's no choice about what that child's going to be. They're going to be a doctor or, yeah, IT or whatever it is. So some people don't really consider, they just, or maybe they do, maybe they follow that path, but they're always thinking in their head, what if I could have been a rock star or something? But but even when you're not in that culture, even like here in the US, you're born into a family, and most of the time it's sort of suggested what path you might take, and you kind of are given a few different options and to choose from. You're not, I mean, they might tell you as a kid, oh, you can be anything you want to be. But then as you start getting of age to where you really need to choose a career path and go to college or whatnot, you pretty much choose from a few options. And those choices are based more upon, I think, more upon usually financial, how you're doing financially, like what college can you go to and what do they offer, as opposed to what you really want to be or do. And how close is that? And do you have to move away from family? Like there's a lot of things that go into choosing a career path that have absolutely nothing to do with, is that what you want to do? And then when you think it through, that if you do want to do that and you get to do that, what is doing that fulfilling within you? What are you going to do with that? And so there's there's so many choices, and sometimes it gets too confusing, and so you just settle for an easier one. And but then do you want the easy? Like some people get bored with the easy. They they want, like, there's people out there that just thrive on being firefighters and 911 operators and jobs that are so intense and so stressful, and but that's what they live on. That's what they get up to do every day. Whereas others of us would go, oh, hell no, I do not want to deal with any of that. Might watch a show about how they deal with it, but I don't want to go deal with that every day. And I just want to sit over here and be in my Zen zone and not having anything disturb that Zen zone very much. So different things drive different people. And thank God for that, because wouldn't it be horrible if everybody hated their job? I mean, a lot of people do, unfortunately, because of the choices that had to be made for other reasons, practical reasons, or some people have to go to the same college that their family has always gone to. Um, but most of us, I think, in the end, or at least me, I don't really know what I want. Like I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I'll be 60 this year, in another month. So next month. So I I can understand why we just kind of try on different lives as we go through this one. Or a lot of us do. Some people just do the same thing their whole life, and that's the life. But many of us, excuse me, have lived many, many lives within this life with all the different things that we've done. So we're really getting like multiple lives within this life. Plus, we got parallel universes going on where we're everything and everybody is everything, doing different things, and we're living all these lives simultaneously. It's no wonder we're exhausted a lot, don't you think?
I was gonna jump out and say yes, I agree with you on a lot of what you were saying, and I'm gonna say welcome to the club. I said it in the chat, but the other thing I've noticed is it's funny how in some ways this book has brought in a lot of elements from other books that we and incorporated it into this fiction type writing, but yet it's interesting how a lot of what we've done before in readings plays in and makes this book and brings out a lot of some of the things that we've gone over in the past and brings it out. And it's interesting how we can kind of see and look how maybe being in a situation like Nora is, where we get a chance to go into those different lives and find that one that we feel would be the best or what we were looking for. And yet, but yet still, we're still here. It makes me think, how much time do we really put into some of the decisions and some of the choices we make for which direction we're going to move in our lives? And then, like I said before, sometimes we can't sit there and, weigh out everything, in deep contemplation. Sometimes we have to make immediate decisions. But overall, in the big scheme of things, how much time do we really, because like you said, I'm still kind of like you. In some ways, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. I'm pretty grown up, but, you know, um, I plan on living till I'm 100, hopefully the good Lord will let me, but so there's still a lot of life left ahead, and you hear stories about people my age or older starting, new things and becoming, big at whatever they do. And I'm not even looking to be big at whatever. I just want to find something that will allow me to have the life I'm in my head picture what I would like, but I was just thinking it would be nice to be in the situation to maybe step into some of the other lives in my head I've created and thinking, okay, it would be nice to go see what that life would be like and if it would be what I'd really wanted or if it's anything near what I picture it would being, or maybe go into this life and see, because I'm sure when we're all daydreaming and stuff and just kind of playing around and thinking, oh well, if I hadn't have done that but did this, what would it would be kind of nice to be able to go and visit and see what that's like. And then maybe see if that's something, oh, okay, well, maybe I need to go back into my life and make those choices that will get me there, you know? And maybe that's something that this is serving as a way to help Nora that maybe if she does get resuscitated, she'll, will she remember, one, will she remember all this? Or two, will it even leave maybe a lingering feeling inside her that, oh, I've got to make some changes, you know, to my life and how it, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but it just makes me even think even more of, all the things that sometimes I don't want to think about, but probably should.
Yeah, well, we're not guaranteed to have these options, so we got to make the most of it. But it sort of brings to the point that um, making the decision and dedication to the decisions can make a big difference. And but also how we perceive our decisions or actions to have an effect on others um, indirectly, um, and obviously not through, when we're not trying to harm them or anything like that, but you're like feeling like, oh, because I made this decision that had, it impacted them this way, and they, that somehow caused them to go down a wrong path. Maybe that's less of a, all these decisions really come back to our own personal decisions. So, um, if you broke off a relationship, or you left a group, or whatever, and that doesn't, maybe we shouldn't feel so, um, we shouldn't feel like uh, that was such an impact that if that people in that group or that other person is, went off in a bad direction, that we were the cause, because that person had the decisions, had a choice, and it was, we all have our own life path to live. We're lucky to have that, and we're all, you know, um, just very, very lucky to be here. So, so make the most of your day, and try to go through with a smile on your face, and try to be positive as much as you can. And look for the good in others, and forgive yourself, forgive others, and I think all that really matters.
I agree on all that. So it's about 8:15, so I think we'll call it a day. And so next week we'll be on the next part of the book. It's called Tricycle. What a name for a section. Makes me wonder what that's all about. But with that, thanks for joining us on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. You can find us on Facebook at Mindset Mastery Collective. You can also find us on YouTube, again, at Mindset Mastery Collective, and on our website at mindsetmasterycollective.com. And you can find ways to get access to the stream. And if you want to be a panelist on here and help us discuss the rest of this book, or as we move forward to future books, it'll tell you how you can get a hold of one of us to work that out, or to get help so we can get you on here. And with that, that's it for the Saturday morning. Oh, okay, Jason.
Real quick, it's Veterans Day. Thank a veteran, take them out for
Thank you. Yeah,
coffee or
that's what I
something
was
like
going to
that.
say.
Yeah, thank you so much for all those who served.
Oh, yes,
Remember them, and
always. So with that, I guess we'll call it. That's a wrap for the Saturday Morning Mastermind. See you guys next week.
bye-bye.
Okay.